I gotta say, Agnostic Front at CB's in 85 or 80, no, wait a minute, it was 87. So Agnostic Front at CBGB's in 87. Instead of saying a slam dancer to pick one particular person, I'm gonna go with a band and say that when I was a kid, the band that you didn't go in the pit unless you had your big boy pants on was Sheer Terror. That was a different pit than all the other pits that for every other show I ever went to. The one that you weren't going in there unless you were prepared for it was Sheer Terror, because that was some of the first real hard dancing that you started to see in the scene. Before that, it was a lot of push mosh and skank and stuff like that. Sheer Terror was some serious danger. The craziest show I ever saw, I saw the Cro-Mags play at Lemoore out in Brooklyn, and it wasn't the original 5 guys from the record. It was just after Mackie left and Petey was playing drums, and I remember them coming on stage and taking forever to get set up, and Harley just kind of walking out and just talking to the crowd as they're getting set up. And then they finally kicked in, and John, you didn't see John anywhere. And the minute they kicked into the first note, John came from backstage and did a double flip, or how many flips in the air, went face first into the crowd. And it was like, you talk about shows and there's a pit. There was no pit at this show. It was from the edge of the stage to the back bar for the entire show. Just bedlam. One of the nights of the Rangers in the Stanley Cup in '94 was that legendary Roseland show when everybody played with Biohazard. There was like Crown of Thorns, Sub-Zero, Madball. Everybody played that show, and I couldn't go to that because I was at the Ranger game. As a guitar player, as a musician, I was influenced by metal stuff. So like Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and that kind of stuff. As a hardcore player, I was a bass player before I was a guitar player. And when I started to move over to more guitar just on my own before I was playing with Ezek or with Madball or anything, I started just playing along to the records. So I started playing along to like Sick of It All records, Madball records, any of the old like Crumbsuckers, Cro-Mags, all that stuff is what I just got my right hand up to speed playing hardcore with. So 3 guitar players, AJ Leeway, probably Paris and Doug, the duo of them from the Cro-Mags, and whoever was in Agnostic Front at the time, up from the older guys, from Vinny obviously being the first, and going up to Matty, at that point. Sure. I think anything where they're not spoiled, like you got Eastern Europe, you've got South America, the places where bands don't get as often as the other areas. We're spoiled here in the States because there's 6-7 shows every week. So it's not special to people, I think, a lot of times, unless your favorite band comes. But you go to Eastern Europe, and those people, they don't get bands coming through that often. So when they do, they go bananas. Mitts came from Lou DiBella from Sub-Zero. In the early 90s, I worked in a recording studio. And at nighttime, when there'd be no session in the room, they'd let you bring a project in, so long as they kind of looked the other way. And I was doing a demo for Sub-Zero, kind of engineering, producing, working with them. And me and Richie Kennan, their guitar player, were getting into a very creative argument over how a guitar part should be played. And so Richie would play how he wanted it, and I'd take the guitar and I'd play how I wanted it, and kept going back and forth. And Lou's in the other corner of the room, and I hear him pipe up after a minute, and he goes, "Look at how he always got to get his mitts on the guitar. He's always got to get his mitts on that guitar." And so I didn't think anything of it. And then later that night, same thing with the neighborhood here. We're down the block at Sophie's, I think, was the bar, and I'm shooting pool, and he starts going, "Mitts, Mitts, I'm going to call you Mitts from now on." And I'm just, yeah. And that was 1993. So it didn't go away. Pride's always fun because it's the big sing-along, and it's not, you know, that hard on the, you know, I can play and sit back and enjoy it. I want to say a song off our new record called DNA is cool because I enjoy the groove of it, and when you've been playing stuff for a long time, you know, it just becomes, you've been playing it a long time. When you do newer songs, anytime we do a new record, the newer songs are the ones I look forward to the most because you're just, you know, you're learning them yourself. And then when we play in South America, when we play the 100% song, which is the song that Freddie sang in Spanish and dedicated to his Latin roots and whatnot, that song's fun because they go bananas, berserk. Go see live music, and this isn't just hardcore. You know, Freddie gets up on stage every night, and he always kind of goes into a thing about interacting with other human beings. The world has become so cyber now that, you know, people sit behind a computer screen all day long. Nobody gets out. You got to get out to a show. You got to get out to a live event, and you gotta interact with people. You got to get out there, experience life. Don't just sit in your house. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is it? It just moves. It moves from place to place. It's a worldwide phenomenon now, whereas it used to be confined to Boston, New York, California, DC. Now it's all over the world. You know, there's stories about kids in Iraq listening to hardcore bands. Biohazard had fans in Iran and shit like that. It's certainly not dead. It's alive and well, going strong, and it'll be around for a very long time. It may ebb and flow and go into pockets where it's, you know, kind of very subculture and very underground, and then maybe it'll have another boom someday like it did in the 90s where it blew up, but it's never gonna go away. You can't kill it.